The year is 525 before Christ. The desert breathes heavy. Under a sky of fire, an army, 50,000 strong, marches into the sands of Egypt. Shields clatter softly, boots press into dry earth. Behind them lies the power of Persia. Ahead, only silence. Days pass, then weeks, and then nothing. No soldiers, no bones, no swords, not even the whisper of a man. It is as if they were devoured by the desert itself. This is the haunting mystery of the lost army of Cambyses. And tonight, as the world around you fades to sleep, we walk in whispers through that ancient golden silence, whispered as the curtain of night pulls across the desert sky. In the stillness before dawn, the desert holds its breath. The wind moves gently across the sleeping sands, whispering secrets that no voice dares repeat. Granules of ochre just shift and shimmer under the moon's fading glow, stirred by the slow exhale of ancient silence. Each grain has waited centuries, each ripple of dune, a memory folded in gold. A faint breeze carries the aroma of sun-bleached salt and the cool dampness that clings to desert stones before the light arrives. There are no footprints in this part of the Sahara, only the long, braided lines of wine-chased sand, curling like faded ink upon a forgotten scroll. Somewhere beneath the surface, the past stirs. Far below, beyond reach and reason, lie fragments of bronze, bits of woven linen hardened by time, and bones, dry as driftwood, tangled like fallen branches beneath the ever-shifting dunes. They do not speak, but the desert remembers. The wind slips softly through a field of jagged stone-dark basalt outcrops, tall and tooth-like, reaching from the sand as if trying to escape something buried far below. In the faint blue of the approaching day, the world holds a hush. Stars blink their last behind veils of thinning night, and the eastern horizon bruises with the faintest blush of saffron. Stillness presses gently on every edge of the world, as if time itself is waiting. Beyond the stone, a faint outline appears, a circle, too perfect to be natural. It's etched into the dry earth, half swallowed by sand, half exposed like a secret, not yet ready to be spoken aloud. Around it, faded impressions stretch outward, traces of something once vast, something orderly, something gone. The sun has not yet touched the rim of the world, but the winds know. They remember a time when thousands of feet pressed into the soil here, an army of men clothed in linen and bronze, their sandals stamping patterns that the earth never forgot. They marched not in haste, but with purpose, quiet, determined. They were seeking something. The wind shifts again, soft as the turn of a page. Something glints, half buried. Not gold, not treasure, just a curl of metal, corroded and silent. Its shape suggests a blade, or the rim of a helmet. There is a stillness to it, a finality. But the desert does not speak in voices. It murmurs only in suggestion. In the distance, a mirage wavers faintly in the morning haze, a flickering hint of something that might be stone columns, or merely tricks of heat and light. There is no certainty here, only echoes, and under it all, a vibration so subtle it can barely be felt. Not a sound, not a movement, but something like memory, a presence that cannot be named, a shadow beneath time. The sands do not forget, the wind does not lie, and the silence that follows the army still lingers, soft as the edge of sleep. In the next breath of wind, the dunes shift once more, revealing just the edge of something carved in stone. Ancient words, worn flat, and yet, still watching, still waiting. The desert has secrets it has never told, but tonight, the wind has begun to remember. Whispered, there is water, somewhere, beneath the silence. Far beyond the stones and dunes, where the wind has begun to stir its ancient memory, there once stood an oasis. It did not scream of paradise, it did not boast of riches or fruit, but it held what the desert seldom offers, the delicate hush of shade and water. Now, it sleeps beneath the sands, forgotten, dried, buried but not erased. The sand above it pulses with the memory of roots that once drank deeply, of reeds that once hummed in the wind, and of footsteps hundreds, perhaps thousands, pressed gently into wet earth. A strange humidity lingers here. You can feel it if you're very still. Close your eyes. Listen. Somewhere deep beneath the surface, water once moved in silence, trickling between carved channels, whispering along polished stone. Ancient engineers, long gone, had hollowed the earth with care, guiding the stream like one might guide thought into prayer. Its echo remains. Above ground, fragments break through the dust, stone lined in deliberate rows, shaped and set by forgotten hands. A circle of palm trunks, petrified to ash grey, their bark peeled away by time. One of them leans, still upright. It seems to be listening. The sky above is turning gold now, light bleeding through the edge of the morning horizon, looking through linen. A few stray clouds drift by, pale and flat as pressed parchment. They cast no shade, only memories. At the edge of this vanished oasis, half covered in loam and sand, rests a slab of limestone, cracked, worn, still damp in places, as if the stone itself mourns the loss of the water it once watched. And carved into its surface, barely visible, symbols, not Greek, not Egyptian, older, or stranger. Carved by hands that were calloused from travel, perhaps, or guided by something unseen. The characters are shallow, nearly erased by centuries of wind. But the pattern of them is undeniable. Spirals, interlocking curves. A language, or perhaps a map. No one alive remembers what it means. And yet, the moment the light touches it fully, something changes. Not sound, not motion, but a deep, quiet pull, like the hush of standing in a great temple alone. You feel the stone's presence, as if it is watching, as if it has been waiting for someone to remember. Around the edges of the old oasis, the sand is darker, denser, packed, as though hundreds of tents once stood here, each one softly lit by oil lamps, their flames flickering against camel-hide walls. Soldiers, cloaked in linen and wrapped in the dust of the Redlands, would have murmured stories in low voices, stories of omens, of kings, of gods who speak in storms. They are gone now. The canvas rotted, the poles toppled, but the shape of them remains in the ground, like shadows burned into stone. Along a dry channel that once carried spring water, small green shoots now struggle, papyrus ghosts pressing up through cracked clay, pale and thin as size. They will not last a week, but still they reach, and among them, caught between two stones, is a piece of fabric, old, desert red. The weave is foreign, not local, worn, frayed, but unmistakable. Cambyses did not send a handful of scouts, he sent an army, 50,000 men, by some accounts. Here, perhaps, was their pause, their resting breath, their brief reprieve before the storm, before the curse, before they were swallowed. The wind stirs again, a scent follows it, faint, but strange, wood smoke and salt. Resin, maybe. It shouldn't be here. Nothing burns in this place. No fire has touched this land in hundreds of years, and yet, for a moment, the air thickens with it. There is no fire, no camp, no one, only the stone, only the dust of palms, only the stillness that suggests someone or something once waited here, and may still be waiting, somewhere beneath. The roots still sleep. The water is gone, but the thirst remains, and in the next shift of wind, the sand moves again just a little, uncovering the corner of a second stone. This one smoother, rounded, carved not with letters, but with an image, a face, blank-eyed, mouth open, as if whispering something back to the wind. Whispered. The silence beneath stone is not silence at all. Beneath the eastern ridge of the scorched plateau, where some cracked rocks hold the color of dried blood, and shadows sink deep into the earth, something waits. It lies beneath the surface, not far below, just enough to vanish from sight. An entrance once marked with torches and cries, now nothing more than a slump in the sand, nearly lost to wind and time. But the desert never forgets. When the wind is still, and the heat breathes gently over the land like a fevered sigh, you can hear it. Not a sound, precisely. A pressure, a suggestion, a hollow thrum beneath the soreness of your feet. There is a cave here, or rather, there was. Its mouth is mostly collapsed now, filled with sand that has poured in over centuries like honey. But deeper inside, Beyond reach of sun or storm, the air remains cool, untouched, ancient. It smells of stone and secrets. Damp mineral dust, old ash, a hint of copper or blood. The kind of scent that clings to ruins and closed tombs. If you follow the downward slope with your thoughts, with your breath, you'll find the remnants of columns. Not grand marble ones. No. These are simple, square carved into the bedrock itself. Their surfaces are etched with patterns that have worn smooth with centuries of stillness, repeating triangles, waves, eyes. The further in you travel, the more you feel it. A hush so dense it presses inward, not oppressive, just deep, like the earth is listening. Along one wall, a narrow channel runs a slit, carved with painful precision. It follows the chamber's length and disappears into the dark. No one knows its purpose, but the sand here is moist. Something moves below, perhaps water, perhaps something else. There is no light, and yet, sometimes, the walls flicker, not brightly, not from flame, but with a faint glow, like the last memory of fire. Perhaps caused by minerals, perhaps not. Within the chamber's heart stands a slab. Not an altar, not a throne, just a smooth, polished platform of black stone, perfectly square, warmer than it should be. Beside it, sunk into the floor, is a bowl, carved from obsidian, empty. But once, it held something, not water, not wine. The stains within it are different, iridescent, like all ill or burned sap. Behind the stone slab rises a wall, and like the others curves slightly forward, as if bowing. Carved into its center is a doorway-shaped recess, though it leads nowhere. Within it is a single glyph, still sharp despite the ages, a symbol, a horned sun, pierced through with 3 arrows. Scholars do not recognize it, but the wind does. It trembles through the chamber now, though there is no opening, no draft. The air ripples across the stone, with a hush like breath across skin. A low hum begins, so quiet it's not heard, but felt in the chest. Something in the room has been disturbed. A balance tipped. You may think you are alone here. You are not. In one corner, beneath a spill of dust and powdered limestone, something watches. A shape, barely visible, carved from clay. Small, humanoid. Its face is eroded, but the hands remain. They are raised not in worship, but in warning. The presence thickens. It's not malevolent, but it is aware. Somewhere beyond the curved wall, beyond the hidden glyph, something vast and old dreams on. The soldiers passed through here. Briefly, they carved their names in the back corridor, Greek script, scratched in haste, desperate lines. Some ended mid-word, others were repeated, as if by hands that trembled. They did not stay. They did not return. Outside, the wind changes direction. The sand shifts slightly across the cave's mouth, sealing it just a little more. The light outside fades to a burnt apricot, and within the temple's heart, the bowl remains dry, waiting. Something beneath the desert is not dead, only forgotten, and not all that is forgotten sleeps forever. Whispered, the wind was once only wind, until it learned the names of the dead. Long before maps were drawn and empires rose, the desert had its own language. It did not use sound, it did not use ink. Its sentences were made of shape and silence, of dunes bending like waves, of hills carved like questions, and of wind that whispered long after the voices had gone quiet. But on one particular day long ago, and not quite lost, the desert changed. The morning had begun quietly, as all desert mornings do. A soft light draped across the sand like gauze. The air, dry and still, smelled of hot dust and crushed quartz. Shadows rested long and low beside cracked ridges and silent stones. The horizon shimmered, but held no shape, until it did. Faint at first, a ripple, a smudge, then rising, layered, heavy, immense. A wall of wind, not gentle, not passing. This was not a breeze or a wandering gust. This was something else. It rose from the west, like a memory returning to fast. A towering surge of sand and heat, coiling with smoke-colored dust, stretching wide across the horizon. 10 miles, perhaps more. It moved without sound, but the silence it carried was thunderous. A storm with no rain, no lightning, only sand and movement. The dunes watched as it approached, silent as always, but shifting ever so slightly in unease. 1,000 shapes buried beneath them felt it, too, bones and bracelets, lost swords, carved amulets, and forgotten boots laced with ancient leather. All shuddered as the wind remembered them. The first breath of it hit with heat, not a scream, not a gale, but a pressure. Like something immense inhaling through the skin of the world, pebbles lifted. The brittle husks of insects rose and tumbled through the air like ash, dry grass bent flat. Then it arrived. The sandstorm rolled forward like a living wall, its edges flaring with serpent tongues of grit and dust. The wind howled now, not in anger, but in recognition. It remembered. It had swallowed the voices of an army once. It had tasted sweat and blood and prayer and bronze. And now it came again, not with fury, but with hunger, with purpose. 4 hours, the world vanished. There was no sky, no ground, no horizon, only motion, only sound. A whispering roar, 1,000 voices in one, the kind of sound that drowns thought and replaces it with rhythm, the pulse of grain on grain, the scrape of air over stone, the sigh of fabric long decayed. Somewhere within the storm, pieces moved, fabric flapped, metal turned, wood splintered. Something once held in the hands of a man, perhaps a staff, perhaps a spear, was lifted, carried 4 miles, then dropped gently into the sand, blade first. It stuck there. It still stands, buried nearly to the hilt. Only the edge of the shaft peeks above the surface, trembling in the wake of storms yet to come. When the storm passed 5 hours later, or maybe 7, the desert had changed. The ridgelines were new, the shadows redrawn, and somewhere, in a place no longer marked on any scroll, Betrayal disappeared. Buried. The army, it is said, was swallowed whole. But perhaps the desert didn't swallow them. Perhaps it absorbed them, remembered them, spoke their names in wind and dust and silence, and changed. The storm no longer moves, but its memory does. And each time the wind rises in the west, it listens and wonders what else it forgot to bury. Where the road ends, the silence begins. On the southern edge of a forgotten trade route, barely a memory carved into the earth, a structure leans into the wind. It once stood proud, perhaps a rest stop for camel caravans, a lookout for passing merchants, or the lonely house of a scribe tasked with marking the hours as they drifted past like grains of dust. Now, only fragments remain. 3 walls of crumbling limestone, a roof, half fallen, held up by the stubborn curve of one arch, and salt, crusted along every surface. The salt clings like frost, but there is no cold here. It traces the cracks in the stone like veins of pale crystal. In places, it grows in flakes and blossoms, shimmering faintly under the slow breath of the sun. No one walks this path anymore. No one has in centuries, but the wind still follows it. And sometimes it stops. Sometimes it listens. Inside the ruin, time feels slow. The heat doesn't scorch, here it hangs, heavy, like breath before a confession. Beneath a fallen ceiling beam, a large flat stone lies undisturbed, almost buried, but not completely. Just enough remains visible to catch the eye. A curve, a line, a mark made not by nature, but by a human hand. Someone carved it, not in haste, in fear. The script is unfamiliar, angular, jagged, carved to deep, as if the chisel had trembled. There is rhythm to the symbols. A repeated set of 4, then 5, then 4 again. A pattern, perhaps a prayer, perhaps a warning. The marks end in a spiral sharp-edged, like a curling blade. No one has translated it. No one alive knows how. But it hums, not with sound, with tension. You can feel it if you place your hand near the stone. A quiet tightness in the air, like the still moments between thunder and rain. It does not pull. It does not push. It waits. Beside the slab, buried in salt, lies the ruin of an object partially wooden, partially metal. A writing tool, not stylus or brush. Something older, primitive, and yet deliberate. Its handle is carved bone, its edge copper, worn down to a thin, curved sliver. Someone used it until the end. The floor around the slab is disturbed. Not recently, but not ancient either. Sometime after the carving was made, someone else came. Perhaps only one person. They did not stay, but they left a mark, a shard of amphora, pressed into the corner. Faded Greek characters etched into it with something sharp. 2 words, logos, logos, sigma iota omega pi way, silence. The message is unclear, or perhaps it says everything. Outside, the wind moves in slow pulses. It touches the edges of the ruin like a hand brushing old parchment, and then the salt begins to shift, not collapse, not crumble. It shimmers, tiny crystals detaching, floating momentarily in the sun-split air. A small vibration passes through the stone, barely felt, like a breath taken in stone. Then silence, stillness, as if the ruin exhaled, as if it finished remembering. The caravan trail beyond this place stretches east, but the ruts have long been swallowed by the desert's thirst. Only this place remains, salted, stilled, speaking. The desert once caught fire, but no flame was seen. Far beyond the last of the marked caravan stones, where the sun feels heavier and time stretches like melted wax, there lies a plain where nothing grows. No brush, no lichen, no ants, just glass. It does not glitter. It does not shine. It absorbs the light. Green-black, folded, and veined like volcanic stone, but smooth, far too smooth. Large sheets stretch across the basin like spilled ink, fractured only by the wind's erosion and the rare fall of night-cooled sand. The ground there feels different underfoot, not soft, not hard, something in between. Like walking on ancient armor, half buried beneath the dust of dreams. The edges of each plate curl upward slightly, warped as if once liquid, and flash frozen in motion. Between them, the cracks hold thin seams of pale sand, as if even the earth is unsure whether to bury or expose what lies here. No animals pass through. Birds turn away. Even the wind slows. There is a silence here that is not merely quiet, it is weight. And in this hush, if you kneel, if you press your ear to the glass, you can almost hear it. Not words, not music, a memory, faint, sharp-edged, like a scream that never finished. Scattered across the field are fragments, smaller shards, some jagged like teeth, others shaped like drops of frozen water. Some have turned inward, curling like leaves scorched by fire, and yet no soot remains, no char, no ash, just smooth, burned silence. And beneath the largest sheet of glass, cracked in the center and webbed outward like a spider's dream, something glows faintly when the moon rises. A soft green pulse, barely more than a shimmer, but real. It does not match the stars. It does not match the sand. It hums without sound. In ancient accounts, a few and fragmented, there is mention of a shattered plain of night glass, where Cambyses' men may have passed through, or vanished into. Some called it cursed, others sacred. None returned. On the eastern edge of the field, a pattern has been carved, not by hand, but by impact. 7 long, straight lines converging into a point. At the center of the point, a depression, round, smooth, as if something fell from the sky and sank without resistance. Around it, shards lie in spirals, laid out with the quiet elegance of a forgotten ritual, or perhaps something else. Somewhere near the rim of the field, half covered in wind-blown soil, lies a human jawbone, worn, dry, teeth still set. Its placement is not random. It faces the glowing center. Some say lightning once struck here. Others whisper of a weapon, long forgotten, not made of iron, nor forged in fire, but gifted, or cursed, given by gods, or pulled from stars. No explanation remains, only this: when the soldiers crossed here, they did not speak. They looked only forward, and when they reached the far edge, only shadows followed them. Glass does not forget the heat that made it, and neither does the desert. There is a silence here that is not merely quiet, it is weight. And in this hush, if you kneel, if you press your ear to the glass, you can almost hear it. Not words, not music, a memory, faint, sharp-edged, like a scream that never finished. Scattered across the field are fragments, smaller shards, some jagged like teeth, others shaped like drops of frozen water. Some have turned inward, curling like leaves scorched by fire. And yet, no soot remains, no char, no ash, just smooth, burned silence. And beneath the largest sheet of glass, cracked in the center and webbed outward like a spider's dream, something glows faintly when the moon rises. A soft green pulse, barely more than a shimmer, but real. It does not match the stars. It does not match the sand. It hums without sound. In ancient accounts are few and fragmented. There is mention of a shattered plane of night glass, where Cambyses' men may have passed through, or vanished into. Some called it cursed, others sacred. None returned. On the eastern edge of the field, a pattern has been carved, not by hand, but by impact. 7 long, straight lines converging into a point. At the center of the point, a depression, round, smooth, as if something fell from the sky and sank without resistance. Around it, shards lie in spirals, laid out with the quiet elegance of a forgotten ritual. Or perhaps something else. Somewhere near the rim of the field, half covered in wind-blown soil, lies a human jawbone, worn, dry, teeth still set. Its placement is not random. It faces the glowing center. Some say lightning once struck here. Others whisper of a weapon, long forgotten, not made of iron, nor forged in fire, but gifted, or cursed, given by gods, or pulled from stars. No explanation remains. Only this: when the soldiers crossed here, they did not speak. They looked only forward, and when they reached the far edge, only shadows followed them. Glass does not forget the heat that made it, and neither does the desert, just the slow curling heat. And the distant haze of copper-colored mountains. The footprints lead northward, toward nothing. No oasis, no ruin, no route marked on the old papyrus scrolls. Only shimmering dust and stone, and the weight of knowing you are being drawn forward, not by force, but by absence. Something is missing, and something else waits to be found. Further along, the prints pause, one step, slightly deeper, as if the walker stopped, shifted weight. Next to it, a single kneel print, left knee, pressed gently into the sand, and beside it, a small indentation, circular, shallow, like the bottom of a bowl, or a head laid down for rest. There is no body, but the print is recent, the sand within it still slightly damp with salt, almost like sweat. The trail continues after that, uphill now, over a blackened ridge of stone, and there, the prints stop, not fade, not blur, stop. They do not turn, they do not return, they end. At the summit of the ridge stands a single vertical slab, natural in shape, yet set to perfectly upright to be untouched by human hands. Its surface is rough, pocked by time, but on its face is a carving, just one, a spiral, not like the one found in the salt house ruin. This one is open-ended, uncoiled, flowing outward like a serpent swimming from the center of the world. Above it, 3 dots, below it, none. The stone is warm to the touch, too warm, even in this heat, and faintly, barely, it vibrates. Not constantly, not in rhythm, but, like breath, a slow, exhaled breath. When the wind returns, it moves around the slab, never striking it directly, and the sand behind it, for reasons no one can explain, does not hold footprints. Even when walked upon, even when danced upon, the sand remains smooth. The footsteps ended here, but the presence did not. Somewhere in the silence, someone watches, not cruel, not kind, only aware. The wain was never closed, because it was never meant to be found. Beneath the ridge where the footprints vanished, beyond the spiral stone and its breathless heat, there is a slope, shallow at first, then deeper, folded into the rock like a scar. The entrance is not marked, not hidden, but not shown either. You must listen for it, not with your ears, but with the stillness behind them. There, beneath a sunlit hollow, where no shadow falls, the earth gives way, just a little, a ring of sand that dips inward, not collapsed, but softened, as if something once exhaled from below. And underneath, stone, cold, smooth, unlike the rest of the desert. This stone is not fractured or wind cut. It is polished, curved, touched by hands long gone. A single line runs down its center, thin, straight, and when pressed gently, softly, as if coaxing memory itself, it moves. A breath of air rises, cool, moist, laced with the faint scent of clay, myrrh, and old smoke. The door does not open, it slides, soundless, revealing darkness, not empty darkness, a waiting dark, inside. The air is cooler than it should be, still, heavy with the weight of silence unbroken for centuries. The walls are curved, not carved, melted, as if formed by heat, but left to cool beneath the slow breath of the earth. And along the surface of the passage, symbols, painted, not etched, ochre, indigo, coal black. Some are faded, others preserved as if painted yesterday. Lines spiral along the walls, diagrams of the sky, phases of the moon, eyes without pupils, flames without smoke, and numbers, so many numbers, not in Egyptian numerals, not Greek, not known, but repeated, tucked in corners, curled inside spirals, always in threes, 3, 9, 27, 81. The corridor narrows, and then splits, left, right, forward, no signs, no words, only instinct, and the soft sound of breath, your own, echoing off walls to close and to quiet. The floor beneath your feet is stone, but it feels soft, yielding, as if you were walking not on a surface, but on something that remembers every step. Here and there, set into the wall, are alcoves. Each contains a single object, not placed carelessly, arranged: a bowl, a bone, a bronze needle, a scrap of wool dyed the color of dusk, a wax tablet, blank, except for a thumbprint pressed deep in the center. There is no dust. Nothing here has aged. Nothing here has changed. Somewhere deeper within, a sound pulses, not loud, not rhythmic. A distant thrum, like a stone dropped into water. Again, and again, and again. The air grows cooler, the turns more frequent, the walls more curved. Time begins to melt. You can no longer tell whether you are walking forward or in a circle. Your thoughts bend, not confused, softened, like dreams remembered hours after waking. And then, a chamber, spherical, perfect. At the center, a column of sand, suspended, not falling, held in place by nothing, just floating. Each grain frozen in its descent, lit from nowhere, glowing gold. It pulses softly. As you approach, the walls begin to whisper, not words, not voices, memories. The scent of wet wool, the scrape of metal on stone, the hiss of boiling water. A name, faint, ancient, gone. Then silence. The column of sand shifts, just slightly. A single grain drops, and the world changes. The labyrinth no longer waits, it watches. Not all things that flow are water. Some are older than thirst itself. Deep beneath the sun-bleached bones of the outer dunes, there is a current. It does not shimmer like water. It does not pull, or splash, or run. It pulses, a slow, rhythmic tide that moves through the stone, under the labyrinth, and beyond memory. Not a river in the way we understand, but something else. The ancients once called it the vein. Those who spoke of it, few, and only in shadows, believed it was not carved by erosion, but placed. A channel formed not by nature, but by purpose. It glows, not brightly, a low, humming amber, like the first glow of a hearth at dusk. This light rises through cracks in the rock, through seams in the cavern floor, through long-forgotten fissures that weave like root systems beneath the feet of history. The source is unknown. It never overflows. It never dries. And where it passes, silence follows. The ceiling above the current is laced with soft mineral shapes, stalactites the color of burnt parchment, dripping not moisture, but dust. A fine, pale dust that falls so gently, it floats before it lands. There is no sound here, and yet, if you sit very still and let your breath slow, you will hear it. The hum, faint, internal, as if it isn't sound at all, but something older, like a heartbeat you were born with, long before your own. Near one bend in the stream, the stone narrows into a shelf, flat and smooth, as if prepared. Upon it lies a fragment of something not stone, not wood, not metal. It's curved, thin, the color of dried rose petals crushed into earth, porous, and beside it, a ring, too small for a warrior's hand, made of woven reed, hardened by age, set in the center, a gem, or what once was a gem. It has faded now, colorless, but it vibrates ever so slightly with the passing of the flow beneath. The river itself remains unchanged. It has no destination. It simply continues, sometimes wider, sometimes shallow, but always forward. Some claim this current was the final guide for the army of Cambyses. Not a road, not a map, but a whisper in the ground that only the lost could hear. Follow it, they believed, and it would lead you to the hidden well, the place beneath the world where water did not dry and shade did not shift. But no one who followed it returned, except once. A scrap of linen, found curled around a bone fragment, was recovered in a collapsed well 30 leagues south of here. On it, faint and curled with salt, were the words, "The river is not water. It remembers the thirst of kings." No one knows who wrote it, but the linen matched the uniform fragments found along the eastern dunes, and the bone was traced to a man from Thebes, a soldier of Cambyses. The current flows still. It waits for no one, but it calls to something, something not yet here, or something returning. When you follow a river that is not water, you do not arrive where you expect. You arrive where the river remembers. Not all things are built of stone. Some are shaped by the absence of light. There is a region beyond the ancient current, where the sands roll flatter, the dunes lower, and the wind holds its breath for longer than it should. The sky here always seems a little paler, as if drained. Even the clouds, when they come, drift by quickly, unwilling to linger. At the very center of this stretch of lifeless plain, there is nothing, nothing, until the sun is directly above. Then, and only then, it appears. Not suddenly, not sharply, but slowly, as if rising not from the ground, but from thought. A dark shape, no walls, no mass, no ruin. Only shadow. It is tall, towering, roughly pyramidal in form, but with irregular edges, as though it was never meant to be touched, only felt. It casts no shadow of its own. It is shadow, and yet it does not flicker. It remains motionless, even as the sun turns. By late afternoon, it is gone again, vanished like breath on glass. Scholars who studied the region call it an illusion, a trick of light on iron-rich soil. But they do not explain the strange hum that rises when the shadow forms, or the patterns it casts inside the eyes of those who stare too long. The Bedouins never go near it. They call it Rajal Kafi, the man who watches, but does not move. They say he was once a priest who betrayed the gods of heat, and now he stands frozen in lightless form, unable to fade, unable to be seen, unless the sun itself allows it. But this is no man, and it is no statue. It is a monument, a marker of something buried below, a place where even the air changes, thinner, drier, strange. The silence here is deeper, not blank, but held, and in that silence, if you lie down in the sand and close your eyes, you may feel it, a rhythm, like distant drums, not loud, not fast, but steady, coming not from below, but from within the shadow. As if something is still beating there, still breathing, still waiting. On the northern edge of the shadow's border, the ground hardens, not rock, something else, pressed sand, compacted in narrow, rectangular lines, stepping stones. They lead nowhere, but they remember direction. They are warm when touched, even when all else is cool. And among them, carved faintly into the center stone, a series of dots and slashes, simple, repeating. It takes hours to notice the pattern, and days to decode it. But once it was translated, we stopped. The light would not pass. The king did not speak. Who wrote it? Unknown. But the language, Proto-Persian. The grammar, older. Too old. The message, incomplete. As if there was more. As if something interrupted the writer before they could finish. The shadow holds no sound, and when the sun begins to fall, the dark shape evaporates, like steam from a cup no one can drink. But long after the form disappears, the feeling remains that something once stood there and chose not to leave. What does not cast shadow may still stand, and what stands without body still listens. Beneath the sands, there is a place where even the sky forgets to shine. Somewhere far below the last edge of the shadow monument, there is a path, not seen, not mapped, not walked in sunlight. It begins where the light ends, not in a crack or a tunnel, in a fold, a ripple in the stone so subtle. It feels like a dream's boundary, the soft veil between what is remembered and what is real. To step through is not to fall, it is to float. The air changes first, cooler, thicker. It smells of damp stone and something else, burned cedar, old ink, the musk of robes worn too long by those who do not sleep. There is no light, none, not even that faint, kind haze that lives behind the eyelids when the moon is high. This is deeper, a darkness that does not touch, it absorbs. You cannot see your hand, you cannot see the ground, but your feet still move, forward, soft stone beneath your sawless. Occasionally, you pass the edge of something, a wall, perhaps, or a statue. You feel it, not with skin, but with closeness. Its presence bends the air. Some feel a chill, others a gentle warmth, and further still, something changes. You begin to hear the darkness. It's not a voice, not a noise, more like a texture inside the ear, a velvet hum, woven from memory. You begin to smell words, not read them, not hear them, smell them. Scrolls, wet ink, a lantern blown out. Each scent arrives like a sentence half remembered. You try to speak, but your voice vanishes into the air, as if swallowed before it leaves your throat. You are not alone, not in the usual sense, but in awareness. Something else moves here, not behind you, not ahead, with you, not a figure, a feeling, a shared breathing. The path curves, or you do. It is impossible to know. At one point, you feel pressure against your shoulder, not impact, just guidance. You turn, you do not fall. Your body moves without seeing, without resisting, and then there is rhythm, not a drum, not footsteps. The memory of breath, patterned, paced. A woman humming to herself in a forgotten dialect. A soldier whispering to a flame that has already died. A child reading aloud in a language never taught. The walls are speaking, but only in the scent of salt and dust. You reach a space, not a room, an opening, not defined by light, but by distance. The air feels vast, cold, alive, and in its center, a single point of heat, a small, slow throb, not from flame, not from ember, from memory, the warmth of a hand that once held a bowl, the pressure of an oath made in silence, the echo of a name whispered by someone long vanished. You feel it without knowing how, and it feels you back. Then, silence again, but not empty, full of things you cannot name, things you do not fear, things you are slowly becoming. The desert does not end at sand, it continues in the dark, where only memory can guide, and only silence can see. Not all who watch the heavens search the stars. Some look down, where the light does not lie. There is a place near the edge of the cliff-lined basin where no sun settles, where no birds circle, and no insects hum. The rocks here form strange patterns, unnatural arcs, crescent shapes, overlapping lines that rise, unfold inward like fossilized waves. They seem to repel the desert's breath. The wind skirts around them. The sun lands on them, but does not cling. Hidden within this rocky crescent, carved seamlessly into the slope itself, lies a narrow stair, each step shallower than the last, as if shaped by hands that measured not with rulers, but with rhythm. The entrance is choked with vines of stone, not plant, not root, stone, veins of quartz coiled like tendons across the doorway, pulsing with veins of something darker, almost metallic. But beyond them, inside the narrow passage, the temperature drops, the breath stills, and the air begins to glow, not with flame, not with reflected light, with a kind of breathless illumination, cold, slow, like the memory of moonlight pressed into glass. As you move deeper, the walls widen, the roof lifts, you emerge into a circular chamber, vast, domed, echoless. The ceiling is polished black, smooth as obsidian, matte like ash, and in its center, a single slit, a perfect aperture, aligned not with the stars, but with the heart of the desert. At midday, light pierces the slit and strikes the center of the floor, where a slab of marble lies inlaid with patterns, not celestial, not maps of constellations, but spirals, radiating outward from a central point, a motif we've seen before. And around these spirals, symbols, carved with mathematical precision. Some are planetary, Venus, Mars, Saturn, yes, but others are unrecognizable, too symmetrical, too aware, and between each symbol, thin black lines, spiderweb thin, that connect like nerve endings in a brain. This is no stargazer's haven. This is a listener's chamber, made not to watch the stars, but to feel what moves beneath them. In the walls of the chamber, a series of recesses, each holds an instrument. No two are alike. Some are of bronze, curved rods with sand-filled bulbs, others of obsidian, slate panels that shift color with heat. One is nothing but a length of bone, balanced perfectly across the pins, vibrating faintly. Each points not upward, but down, toward the earth, as if the ones who built this observatory believed something within the land moved as the stars did, on a clockwork track, repeating, returning, obeying laws older than light. And at the far end of the room, across a raised platform, a panel, stone, smooth, featureless, until the wind rises through the slit. Then, patterns appear, faint lines of condensation, letters, perhaps, or numbers, forming only in the presence of breath, a message meant for those who watch and wait. It appears only briefly, only once, and then fades. But before it vanishes, the lines form words, ancient, rare, but translatable. The king did not turn back. The earth moved beneath him, and the horizon opened its mouth. Who carved this? And how could they know? The observatory has no stairs beyond, no tunnel. Just this room, just this place. A sealed chamber meant for waiting, or remembering, or both. Outside, the light begins to change. A soft wind blows through the slit overhead, and the slab on the floor shivers slightly, the spirals vibrating ever so faintly, as though struck by an unseen hand. Not all movements happen in the sky. Some come from below, some rise through stone, some wake only when watched. And this was meant to watch. They did not leave, they did not fall, they did not run, and yet they were no longer there. There is a basin just east of the black observatory, a shallow bowl cradled by dunes, its walls lined with fine gravel and streaked with iron-rich soil. From above, it appears empty, lifeless, but from within, there is order. A circle, large, perfect, formed not by chance, but by the deliberate placement of tents, 36 in all, spaced evenly around a central ring of stone. They have not collapsed. The ropes are intact. The fabric is faded, yes, but still stretched towards over-bone white poles. Not wood, not metal, bone. Each tent faces inward, toward the center, toward a ring of flat stones, placed like clock ticks around a buried post. The post is thin, iron, tapered at the top like a stylus, rusted, but upright. No footprints around it, no signs of conflict, no tearing, no scattering, only the wind, brushing gently across the canvas, lifting corners now and then as if trying to peek inside. Inside each tent, silence, no supplies, no weapons, no tools, but signs of presence. A folded cloth here, a small ceramic bowl there, with hardened traces of lentil paste, an unlaced boot, lying just beside a mat woven from desert reeds. The mats are all smooth, unslept in, as if the men inside had just stepped out and never returned. In one tent, larger than the rest, with red dye faded along the seams, a table stands, low, made from joined slats of cedar wood carried from the Nile. On its surface, a wax tablet. Its surface bears 6 words, still legible, etched not in Greek, not in Persian, but in Old Coptic. Greater than we await the sign. The sand moves, that is all. No name, no date, no symbol of rank. Only a small indentation at the tablet's bottom edge, a fingerprint, still pressed there, hardened into the wax. Outside, the wind begins to circle, not harshly, not with warning, just tightly, a soft current looping the camp in a slow spiral, and with it, the faint scent of frankincense. No fire burns, no ash remains, and yet the air smells of ritual, as though something had just ended or begun. At the center of the circle, the iron post begins to hum, too softly to hear with ears, but the teeth feel it. A high, narrow tension, not painful, not frightening, just real, present. It does not intensify. It does not fade. It simply holds and holds and holds somewhere. A flap lifts. No one touched it. It remains lifted, calmer, as if someone just left it open. And from within the tent, nothing emerges. But the fabric does not fall, not for minutes, not until the wind finishes its slow spiral and passes. Then the flap lowers, and the camp goes still again. The army did not march on. It waited, and in waiting, it vanished. They followed a road with no beginning and no end. Beyond the edge of the silent camp, where the sand thins into chalky stone, a trail begins to form. It is narrow, yet firm, not a natural wash or wind-carved rut. It is a path, pressed flat by hundreds, perhaps thousands of slow, deliberate steps, not rushed, not fleeing, just walking, round, always round. The trail spirals, not outward, not inward, just around. There are no forks, no side paths, no campsites, only this single track, etched into pale white rock that gleams faintly beneath the soft sky, curving gently like the edge of a sleeping eye. As you follow it, the air changes, the light shifts, not suddenly, slowly. Shadows fall at different angles than they should. The sun's warmth arrives, then fades, then returns unchanged. Time does not pass here. It breathes, in and out, and around again. You begin to notice things repeating. A dry bush, brittle and skeletal, appears on the left, then again, 20 steps later, then again. But each one is subtly different. One has a red thread caught in its branches. Another bears the cracked shell of a beetle, long dead. A third smells faintly of myrrh. Ahead, a tall rock stands alone, rising like a monolith. You pass it once, then again, then again. Each time, the lichen on its face shifts, dark green, then grey, then gone entirely. You begin to realize the spiral is not just space, it is memory. Each step loops not only around a center point, but across moments, echoes, possibilities. The army walked here. You see the evidence now. Faint impressions preserved in the stone. A boot print, a sandal scuff, the round indentation of a dropped shield. But none go forward. They all loop, and loop, and loop again. The deeper into the spiral you walk, the quieter the world becomes. No wind, no insects, no birds, only your steps, and something else. A low vibration, like a drum struck once every 1,000 heartbeats. The ground grows darker, greyer, dustier, and then you arrive at the center. It is not marked, it is not grand, it is hollow. A depression in the earth, shallow, smooth, as if something once stood there for a very long time, unmoving. A tower, a statue, a figure. There is no way to tell. But around the edge of this hollow, carved in perfect concentric rings, words, dozens of languages, hieroglyphs, Aramaic, Old Persian, Phoenician, Demotic, Greek, and something else, unknown, at the very center, in letters so faint they are almost invisible. To walk the spiral is to choose, to remain is to remember, to forget is to survive. And then, the final message. He did not turn back. Nothing else remains. Just the circle, the path, the echo. You do not know how long you've been here. Minutes, hours. The sun is in the same place. Or is it? The spiral does not answer. Some paths do not lead forward. They lead through the folds of time, through the folds of truth, through the folds of what must never be spoken again. They were not carved. They were not built. They were grown in silence, beyond the spiral of time, where even light has begun to move more slowly. The terrain flattens into a wide, open basin. It is a place untouched by wind. The sand here is to fine, to powder soft, like ash sifted through silk. At first, it appears empty, but as you move forward, shapes begin to rise, low to the ground, spaced irregularly, like teeth growing from the jaw of the world. Stones, hundreds of them, short, rounded, some the size of a fist, others as tall as a sleeping child, no two alike. All standing upright in the dust, and none casting a shadow, no matter the hour. They are smooth to the eye, but rough to the touch. Each holds a strange, humming tension beneath its surface, not audible, not visible, but present. As you walk among them, the air thickens. There is a density here, not weight, meaning. It clings to your skin, to your thoughts. The deeper in you move, the more the vibration begins to change, low at first, then higher, softer, closer. Not random, it changes as you do. If you slow your steps, it softens. If you pause, it holds. If you close your eyes, it sharpens. You reach out and place your hand on one of the stones. It does not move, but inside your palm, something shifts. You see a face, not your own. A man, robed in white linen, his skin caked in dust, his eyes wide with hunger and awe. He's not speaking, but he's remembering. You feel the imprint of his memory, pressed deep into the stone like a fossil of thought. He once stood here, he once listened, and the stone remembered him. You step away, and the vibration lingers. Another stone now, taller, thinner, leaning slightly to the left. You place your fingers on it. A whisper rises in your mind. Not a word, not a language, a feeling, like warm water over cold skin. And a shape, a pyramid, not one of Giza. This is older, buried, cracked. You see it for only a second, then gone. Another stone, no touch this time. You only stand near, but your breath shortens, and a taste rises on your tongue. Metal, smoke, sand, blood. The memory of an oath made at the edge of a flame. You realize it now. These are not just stones, they are recordings, not of sound, not of voice, of presence. They carry echoes of thought, of being. They remember what has passed through them, and they offer it back to those who are still enough to receive it. You wander deeper. The arrangement of the stones begins to form a pattern, not geometric, not symbolic. A wave, each stone a peak, each space between, a valley. You realize you are standing inside a frozen frequency. A moment of thought turned physical. A silent voice, captured and set in stone. At the very center stands the tallest pillar, dark, smooth, hollow. It hums so softly, you don't hear it with your ears. You feel it behind your ribs. You draw near. You do not touch it, but it feels you. And as it hums, a shape appears in your mind. A desert, vast and blue. A sky, red, not from sun, but from flame. And in the distance, a single figure, walking into the wind. No name, no face, just presence, and a final whisper, so faint it could be the wind in your eyelashes. We did not turn back. We heard the stone speak. The king remained. Then, silence again. The field quiets. The humming stops. And every stone now stands still, not lifeless, just watching. Not all voices are spoken. Some are felt. Some are stored. Some are waiting to be heard again. And in this basin, nothing is forgotten. The land did not guide them. It remembered where they were willing to go. South of the stone field, beyond a flat, shining salt pan, across a low ridge that hums like hollow glass, there is a fissure in the ground. It does not gape. It whispers, a crack no wider than 2 shoulders, running down the spine of a narrow cliff, like the seam of an old wound. It was once sealed. Now it breathes. The entrance is veiled by heat shimmer during daylight, nearly invisible. A ripple in the air, like a memory refusing to form fully. At dusk, the shimmer fades, and the opening shows itself. Inside, darkness, but not black. It is a soft, colored dark, like the inside of a closed eye during dreams. The first step inward carries the scent of worn leather and cool clay, followed by a quiet sweetness, something like saffron, or memory. The passage is smooth underfoot, worn not by water, not by weather, but by decision. This is not a tunnel, it is a maze, but not one built to trap, one built to reflect. As you move through it, the walls shift, not physically, perceptually. Corridors appear where none were before. Paths behind you vanish. No markings, no symbols, just gentle stone curves, like the inside of a shell shaped by the sea of time. You choose a direction, a turn, and the wall behind it disappears, not collapses, not opens. It ceases to exist. Only forward remains, only the path you chose. You begin to sense the truth. This cave is not a map of land, it is a map of choice. Every path is a possible decision, every turn a forgotten fork. The deeper you move, the more familiar the turns begin to feel. Not like places you've been, but like moments you almost lived. You reach a small chamber, round, its walls pulse with faint warmth. On one side, 3 doorways, each the same size, each framed in smooth limestone, each entirely dark. But as you approach, images begin to rise from the walls around them, flickering shadows, scenes, moments, not prophecies, possibilities. In one, the army turns back. Cambyses does not press forward. The men survive. The scrolls are rewritten. In another, the king never orders the march at all. His army never leaves Egypt. The desert remains quiet, forgotten. In the last, they continue, but not to Siwa. They follow a different star, and vanish willingly. The walls grow still, and the doorways fade. They are not meant to be walked. They are meant to be understood. You move on. The corridor narrows again, and the walls begin to show voids, patches of perfect, empty black. Not carvings, not paintings, absences, holes in the stone. When you pass close, a faint vibration brushes your skin. Each one feels different. One like grief, one like silence, one like breath drawn, but never exhaled. Each is a decision once unmade, each a map that never existed, but still lingers in potential. And on the far wall of the final corridor, a single phrase, carved in jagged, shallow letters, as if scratched by a hand that no longer had strength, written in ancient Aramaic. No path is lost, only chosen too late. Below it, an open arch. You pass through, and the light changes, dim blue-grey, like dawn seen from underwater. The air is cooler now, still, and for the first time in many chapters, you hear water, dripping, softly, in rhythm, as if something just ahead is still alive. Maps are not drawn on paper, they are carved in possibility. And what the king chose, the desert still remembers. It was not water that flowed. It was all that had ever been forgotten. The corridor narrows, the ceiling descends, and the drip, soft, rhythmic, grows louder, not as a sound, as a presence. It fills the air like slow thunder, rolling in the chest, rising in the base of the throat. Each drop resonates, not as noise, but as feeling. You step down. The stone changes color, from pale sandstone to a darker, inky shade, smooth, polished, cool underfoot. The scent of wet ash and dried herbs begins to filter in, not fragrant, familiar. You are close now. A soft curve opens into a chamber unlike the others, circular, tall. At the center, a basin, wide, low to the ground, perfectly still. It is not made of stone, not metal. It looks like glass, but ripples like the surface of mercury, and within it, a slow swirl, dark, silver blue. It moves with purpose, not stirred by gravity or current, but by memory. This is not water, it is liquid time, a pool that gathers all the thoughts that have touched this place, and holds them, not forever, just long enough to be witnessed. Around the basin, tall columns rise, thin, natural, like petrified roots or ancient bone. They curve slightly inward, forming a kind of dome. From their tips, water drips, but the drops do not fall into the pool. They fall just short. They vanish in midair, evaporated not by heat, but by remembrance. Each drop once held a moment, and each moment has already been absorbed. You step closer to the pool. The surface shifts, not sharply, slowly. A shape begins to emerge within, not reflected, not mirrored, but formed. You see a column of men, wrapped in linen, faces drawn, eyes forward. They walk not in triumph, not in fear, but in acceptance. The sun above them burns red-orange. The sand beneath their feet flows not flat, but upward, rising, whispering, wrapping their legs like fingers of smoke. They do not run, they do not shout. They walk. At the head of the line, a man in a dark robe, unadorned, no crown, but he walks with gravity. This is Cambyses, The king who would not turn back. In the pool, his figure grows clearer. He kneels, not before a god, before the desert. He presses his palm to the earth, and the ground accepts it. The pool darkens, then brightens. You see another moment. A tent, still, quiet. Inside, scrolls, weapons, coins, but also a map, drawn not on papyrus, etched into the bones of a gazelle. A spiral, the same spiral, the same trail, and in the center, not a city, not Siwa, a symbol, one that matches the carvings from the salt-crusted ruin. The black spiral with the 3 dots. The pool shimmers again. A final vision rises. The soldiers, no longer walking, they are standing in a vast, round basin, hands open, eyes closed, and in the center, something glowing, not a fire, not a light, an opening, like a breath exhaled by the earth itself. A doorway. Then, the surface of the fountain stills, perfect, quiet. The drip resumes, slow, steady. From the far wall, a narrow stone path leads downward. Curved steps, spiral again. No torches, no symbols, only invitation. And just above the path, etched into the stone, beneath the thirst, we did not find water, we found remembrance. And in remembering, we were no longer lost. You step toward the descent, and behind you, the pool begins to dim, like a memory slowly fading into sleep. The fountain did not offer answers, it offered witness, and now, it waits for you to choose what to carry forward. It was not the desert that swallowed them. It was the place that opened its hand. The spiral steps wind down in silence. There is no air, no breeze, only the texture of stillness brushing your skin like a cold breath drawn through cloth. Each step is carved smooth, not from stone, but from something older, pressed, formed, as though shaped by the passage of countless feet, long before the memory of cities. The walls here are not rough, they shine, polished with time, etched faintly with swirling patterns, not of stars, not of language, but of breath, curves that mimic exhalation, waves, cycles, rhythms. A deep hush follows you, softer than silence, as if the very space around you, waiting to hear what you remember. At the bottom of the staircase, the passage opens, widening, flattening, revealing a chamber carved from a single stone, round, vast, its ceiling so high it fades into darkness. The floor is white, bone white, powdered and fine, crushed stone, maybe, or ash. In the center stands a structure, not tall, not wide, just present, an altar, but not like any known to temples or tombs. It is made of folded plates, dark, metallic, layered like petals turned inward. The surface is cracked, but not broken. It glows faintly from within, not golden, not fiery, violet, a color not meant for this world. Surrounding the altar, arranged in concentric circles, are shapes, not statues, not bodies. They are robed figures, frozen in time, kneeling, hands open, not pleading, offering, stone, perhaps, but not cold. Each one radiates heat, not heat from fire, heat from memory, presence. They are not images, they are presences that remain. The outer ring contains 12, the second 9, the third 3, and in the very center, just before the altar, the 13th figure, larger than the rest, one hand on the ground, one hand raised, a ring on his finger, worn smooth with time. The king, Cambyses, no crown, no sword, just stillness and peace. The altar pulses softly, as if beating once every few heartbeats. With each pulse, the faintest echo, like a memory pressed into stone. If you stand still and let your thoughts soften, the altar begins to whisper not in words, but in images. A vast desert, blue with early twilight, the army stretched in formation, motionless, the wind rising, slow and warm. A decision made not in anger, but in understanding, not a defeat, not a disappearance, a surrender to something older, a merging, not with gods, not with the earth, with memory itself. The altar is not a monument, it is a vessel, and they did not vanish. They offered themselves to it, to the spiral, to the silence, to the desert that forgets nothing. They walked forward, into the unknowable, and were taken, not by death, but by remembrance. The figures remain here, not as stone, not as dead, but as echoes that still breathe, still think, still whisper, waiting not to return, but to be understood. The altar was not built to hold sacrifice. It was built to receive understanding, and the army of Cambyses gave all that it had, not in fear, not in error, but in choice. When the memory was complete, the silence began to walk again. The ascent is slow. The spiral path from the altar is longer than it seemed descending, or perhaps time has folded. The walls carry a warmth now, not heat, but wakefulness. The symbols carved along the passage shimmer slightly, not with light, but with motion, as if they were never still, merely sleeping. Each step forward is greeted by a soft sigh in the stone, not breath, not sound, but the soft weight of something expecting you. When at last you reach the surface, the air is different, lighter, darker. The sky has shifted, not night, not day. A soft violet grey, the colour of early dawn that never quite arrives. The sand moves, but not with wind. It flows, like breath pulled in slow reverse, backward across the dunes, toward a centre no eye can see. Shapes rise on the horizon, faint, walking, but not casting shadow. Figures, slow, tall, not physical, not imagined. They move with the rhythm of something long remembered. The wind does not blow, it walks. Each gust feels directional, intentional. It circles your ankles, it brushes your cheek, it curls behind your neck, and with it, a feeling that the desert is not empty, that it never was. Something beneath the sand has awakened, not a creature, not a god, a network of memory, and now it breathes again, not to warn, not to rule, but to remind. The dunes themselves have shifted. What was once straight is now curved. What was buried now leans in the open. Half ruins, half shapes. The field of glass, gone. In its place, mirrored dust, swirling in silence. The ring of tents, still there, but the flaps now move without wind. And the post at the center, it glows, softly, pulsing. A quiet beat, not heard, but felt between the ribs. A low drum that plays in the soil beneath your feet. Every footprint now vanishes, seconds after it's made. The sand no longer allows marks to stay, as if the desert is erasing the present, to protect the past. And yet, in the sky, a line of light, thin, vertical, straight, a column rising from somewhere far off. It moves like a memory returning, not fast, but certain. Beneath it, on the edge of vision, where horizon meets nothing, a single figure walks, not toward you, not away, just forward, carrying no weapon, no pack, only a simple robe, dust-covered. And as they pass between dunes, they leave no trail, but the sand remembers their presence. And for a moment, just a breath, you feel the presence recognize you, not see, not know, just remember. Then gone. The light fades, the wind pauses, the desert sighs. Something walks the sands again. Not a king, not an army. A whisper, risen, alive, and still listening. The last word was never spoken. It was only remembered. The sun has disappeared, not set, not hidden, just gone. The sky hangs low and soft above the dunes, a blanket of indigo and ash, with no moon to puncture it. The stars remain faint, more like memories than lights. The desert no longer rustles, it breathes. Each dune rises, then settles, as if shifting beneath a great weight being lifted. You walk now, not across land, but across the edge of something not yet defined. The air is thick with quiet. Everything that could be found has been. Everything that could be remembered has returned. But not all has been spoken. And so, the desert begins to hum, not with sound, not with voice, with rhythm. Beneath your feet, the sand vibrates, a gentle pulse, a spiral unfolding. And just ahead, rising like mist from the ground, you see it, a shimmer, a shape, not a city, not a ruin, a presence made visible. It forms not from dust, but from absence. You step closer, and feel yourself moving within it. Walls that are not walls, structures that glow faintly with something older than fire. And in the center, a dais, circular, black stone, warm, and at its center, a pool, not deep, not wide, but still, utterly still. This is not the fountain of remembrance. This is something after. A final resting place for everything not remembered. A place where forgotten things lie down softly, where silence becomes sacred. You kneel beside it. You do not speak. You do not need to. The pool ripples once, and within it, no images, no visions, only your reflection, but not as you are now, as you have been, as you have forgotten, as you were in every step of this journey. Echoing the lost army who once chose not to be found. And then, the sand begins to fall, softly, like snow from a sky that has no season. It falls upward, then downward again, covering the days, covering the pool, covering the path behind you, and in its wake, only quiet, only breath, only stillness. The altar is gone, the spiral erased, the wind returns, but it says nothing now. It has finished speaking. You feel your body soften, not weaken, just fade, into the rhythm, into the remembering, into the dream. And somewhere far beneath the dunes, the king still kneels, one hand in the earth, one hand raised to the air, still, listening. And when morning comes, the desert stretches once more, warm, silent, empty, but not lonely, never lonely. For beneath its dunes sleeps a memory so vast, so patient, it no longer needs to be told, only whispered, only once, and only to those who still listen, like you, right now, in the quiet, still, still, still.